Such a great question. Who was Karl Marx? He is made out to be almost this mythical figure with absolute brilliance and insight and foresight and the solutions for all the world's problems. Fact of the matter is, Marx was a greedy, selfish, spoiled brat, rich son of a wealthy German lawyer. He cared nothing for anybody else except himself. He had contempt for everybody around him. He was viciously prejudiced against blacks. He favored slavery. He called the proletariat, whose Communist Manifesto was supposed to deliver freedom to, he called them stupid boys, rogues, asses. All the people around him said that Marx was just a man filled with hate, filled with rage towards everything. And think about this. 2 of his daughters and 1 son-in-law committed suicide. 3 of his young children died of malnutrition. And while his wife, who left him twice and came back twice for unknown reasons, was running around trying to find a coffin to bury one of their children in because Marx had spent all their money and he was penniless, he employed a secretary who was described by one writer as loutish, libidinous, and otherwise useless, for the sole purpose of keeping up appearances. He felt it was important for a man of his stature to keep up appearances while his wife was running around trying to raise up enough money to buy a coffin for one of their dead children. His mother harried him weekly to change his underwear. He never did. He spent the rest of his life, excuse me, hovering over ailing relatives, waiting for them to die so he could find out what was in the will for him. And he would write letters to his partner in crime, Friedrich Engels, telling him about the latest death and how much he might get out of the will. Is simply astonishing. And this is all public record history that anybody can find. And I have endless citations in my book to prove it. It's simply amazing.
Sounds like he's one of the most despicable men who has ever lived. It sounds like he was spawned by hell itself. And you touch on that in the book a little bit about whether he's an atheist or a Satanist. And I know there are 2 schools of thought. Share a little about that.
Well, the thing is, he was raised, actually, his father, they're Jewish heritage. But in Lutheran Germany, Jews couldn't practice their profession. So his father became a Lutheran. And he raised Karl Marx as a Lutheran. And when he was in high school, Marx wrote beautiful Christian poetry. I mean, I cite one in the book. It's really quite beautiful. But of course, just like today, he went off to college and came back a totally changed person. He fell in with a bad crowd, and at least one writer, Richard Wurmbrand, wrote a book called Marx and Satan. He believes that the people who influenced Marx in college were actually Satanists. And it's interesting that Marx himself seemed to reflect that in his latter poetry, because I quote one of his poems where he doesn't reject the presence of God or the existence of God. He says, I'm going to be equal to God.
Oh, wow.
I am going to be God's equal.